Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. I got my man Anthony Schlegel, as we do each and every week, having a good time because Schleg's the best part about being 6-0. Well, that's a chance to go 7-0. The Buckeyes take care of business in West Lafayette, a place that had been the little shop of horrors for Ohio State over the last 20 years. Not a place where there had been a lot of success. Heck, we lost there back in 2004. They lost there in 2018 in a big way. Dwayne Haskins throwing the ball 73 times. And it seemed like Ryan Day wanted to come out and he wanted to send a message. He wanted to run the football. And I felt like that was something that they definitely wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that they were going to drive it. They wanted to dominate. They wanted to control the line of scrimmage because coming up with Penn State here in a minute, they wanted to have momentum moving forward. And so they want to get the offensive line going. They want to get the defensive line going in a place that can be a little squirrely for the Buckeyes. So when you saw the game, what were your first thoughts about watching that and what you thought everything was going on?
Hey, cheers everybody to 6-0. They definitely started out running the football. I think they got 100 yards really quickly. Chip Trayanum going out kind of like stifled that a little bit. I can't wait to get your thoughts, Bob, on the Devin Brown package, aka our version of Taysom Hill. But takeaways, I said, man, you know what I wanted in this game? I wanted 200 yards rushing and 4 sacks. Well, we got 3 sacks. We got 150 plus on the ground. Dallin Hayden looked really good. I love the way that he just puts his foot in the ground and accelerates, runs really hard. And, again, that's why you're at Ohio State. Now, I think that we were balanced and we were productive, minus Trevion, Mayan, then Chip, then Emeka, right? So guys have to step up, and they did so. Carnell Tate had 79 yards. Marvin Harrison had over 100 yards, threw the ball effectively. There are some things, though, right? So, a lot of positives offensively. The strip sack, the fumble going into the end zone. Again, that's 2 weeks. Well, I think it was the Notre Dame game. I forget. My memory is crazy talk. But he's 10 yards back there. Like, just step up, right? That strip sack is not on Fryer. It's on him. He just has to step up and understand where the pocket is, because that was from his right side. It's a little bit different when it's from your left, but that's from your right side. So, you got to step up in the pocket. Those 2 fumbles, right? So you get that one of Devin Brown going in. Now you're 27-0 at halftime. Does it make a difference here? No. But again, in games that we're going to talk about coming up versus Penn State, those are things that you have to capitalize on. So there were a lot of really good things. One thing, Bob, and I want you to speak about this. I love the way our offense was utilizing formations and motion to get what they wanted. You saw it with the toss sweep, right? They motioned out. They did toss sweep to a bunch. They ran the counter play where they pulled the guard and the tackle and blocked back with a tight end. Guys, listen, that is very difficult stuff when you're a linebacker and you are on the tight end side and you see color cross your face, and then you also see color cross your face coming back. That's why you have to read the running back as well, because he's going to take you to the party. But then off of the same formation, boom, now you hit Kate Stover real quick off of play action. So all of those things started to happen, and I really liked that. I thought the play calling was fantastic, and it is very difficult going into, as a defender looking at Ohio State when you're running those things and you're utilizing motion to capture the edge, and then also to be able to hit the play action pass. That was really working in our wheelhouse this week, Bob.
There's a couple of good things. Number one, like you mentioned, Schlegs, they got the running game going. They did run what you love, the boundary toss. I know we've been hammered it every week, but the one thing I will say, Dallin Hayden does a good job of running the toss or the stretch into the boundary because he's a one-cut guy, puts his foot in the ground. You can see a little wiggle, and then he gets vertical and goes and gets yards. You talked about the defensive line. That's been positive. Both JT and Jack having a sack and a half apiece. Like, they were getting after the quarterback. You like to see Kyle climb the pocket a little more. As you mentioned, you got him coming off of your right side. They teach him to dip the shoulder, climb through, create, and have some space. The Devin Brown package was nice. But one thing you talked about, the counter left, like we started talking about this last week, the zone runs versus gap scheme runs. And so we saw more of the gap scheme. We saw some misdirection. Whether it was Xavier Johnson running the ghost, the fake reverse, then they'd run the reverse, but they had a lot of things going on. And I think that confused Purdue. And let's also remember this. Purdue was beaten up. Like, they're not a good football team. But if you go and look around college football, and I tell people this all the time, I don't think Purdue is any worse than Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt was giving Georgia all they could handle. And so as we look at this, everybody maybe wants to besmirch exactly what they saw. Like, okay, we're going to take a look around college football. We're going to recap this game. We're going to understand what happens. But of the teams that played in the top 5 in that early window, some of them struggle a little bit. That's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
not the best thing in the world. You don't want to see it. But you know what? You deal with it. You survive and advance into an ultimate huge game that we're going to see this week against
Yes.
Penn State. So we're going to have that coming up. We'll preview that game for you. We're going to have our questions from listeners, which are brought to you with Tailgate Talk with Real Truck, which is going to be one of the favorite segments, especially coming into this week with Penn State.
Yes.
And so as you sit here and look at this, you mentioned Trey's out, Mayan's out, Emeka's out. Chip gets hurt during the game. Like that running back room that has been so robust got real thin in a hurry. And I felt like the offensive line and the running backs, like I felt like they did a pretty darn good job. And Ryan made a concerted effort to get that running game going when everybody just said, let's just throw it all over the place.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bob. And so with that, I also take this perspective. Defensively, we were 3 of 17 on third down. That's fantastic.
Great.
Okay, so they rushed for 123. They threw for 134. They only had 7 points. Defensively, I thought we did a good job, especially going into half when they had the ball on the 1 yard line, and then all of a sudden they're kicking a field goal 25 yards further back. Okay, because we had a sack. Like that's what you do when you're 3rd and 17. It allows you to get in the nice rhythm, Bob. That you know what I mean, that you love so much. But that's why you're able to do those things because you're getting the ball back. And 3rd and 17, it was fantastic from our defense as complimentary football. And so you're absolutely right. The good thing about Ohio State is, yes, we're a little bit thin in this game, but when called upon, you respond, and some guys did. And Dallin Hayden threw his hat right back in the mix. It's like, hey, where does this guy come from? Because it was Chip, right? And, oh, he's here. So you have, in order to win at this level, it's a battle of attrition. And when you have the depth that Ohio State does, you have a leg up on everybody else. And I thought what they did was they went to West Lafayette, they handled their business, and they won the football game like they should have. And it could have been more.
It could have been more. And you talk about situational football. They started fast, which is what we wanted them to see. Want to see from them. Those guys get going, get Purdue on their heels. Red zone, I thought was great. The wrinkle with Devin Brown. Obviously, the fumble wasn't good, but everything else structurally, I really liked with what they were doing. And then lastly, nobody wants to see anyone in the 2-minute situation at the end of a half rip your defense a little bit down the field. You don't want to see them move the ball. But like you said, Schlegs, you love the fact they have the ball on the 1. You stop them. And then ultimately, over the next successive plays, you turn them away. And they miss a field goal. Granted, that's a little bit luck, and that's on their kicker. But you put them in a situation where they were forced to execute, and they couldn't do it. And so kudos to that Buckeye defense. They keep playing. I'll tell this to guys till the end of time. Just keep playing. Just keep playing. Keep playing football, and they will eventually give it back to you. Do not give in. So we're going to take a short commercial break. Take a look around the world of college football. Everything that was going on. Buckeyes look good. Maybe some teams look good. Maybe they didn't. We'll take a look around the world, see what's going on. We got all that coming next right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. As always, I'm your host, Bobby Carpenter. My man, Anthony Schlegel, is joining me. He's in Circleville, Ohio, round town, back in the Buckeye State. I'm not in my familiar confines right outside of campus. I am actually out in Southern California, came out here a little bit this week.
Nice.
Yeah, Schlegs.
Nice, Bob.
Yeah. Well, down here in Los Angeles, where people really don't care about football, but I was getting up at 5:36 in the morning to watch College Game Day when games are kicking off. The Buckeyes at 9 a.m. and I've got to have my laptop up in the hotel lobby with a little speaker to watch the game. I mean, all that stuff is good because nobody has Peacock and it's been a pain in the butt to try to deal with. So all those things we were trying to manage out here on the West Coast. But speaking of the West Coast, our game day was out in Seattle, Washington.
Yes.
Oregon, the Ducks were heading out there. It was this, I believe, a 6-7 matchup, 7-8 matchup right there. Top 10, 2 teams. Our guy AJ and his boy Pat McAfee, they were taking care of it on College Game Day. It was absolutely a tremendous environment. I give them credit. I'm sitting out here at 6 a.m. It's pitch black. I'm doing some radio for XM. I'm watching in Seattle. They've got a bunch of people out there. It was a raucous environment. I thought Oregon was the most complete team in the West Coast in college football. I thought they had a defense. I thought they had a running game. And everybody knew they could throw it enough. But give Washington credit. The Washington Huskies take them down 36-33, and now they
Yep.
have the lead in the Pac-12. When you're watching that game, Schlegs, what was your initial thoughts? And do you think Washington is a national title contender this year?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I mean, 100% they are. I mean, it was, I think, a 7-8 matchup at
Yeah.
home. You have Oregon, and Oregon, I mean, they are built like an SEC team, meaning they are physical. They want to run the football, and Bo Nix is their quarterback. Like, that's what they do. And he made enough plays that, and again, all these games come down to one or two things, and you have to execute and make them. And I think one of the things that kind of hurt them a little bit in that type of game, you're fourth down going into half, time running out, and you don't kick a field goal. Now you can't look back at that, but you do look back when you think of the totality of the game and you lose by 3. So
Well, they had
also
three fourth downs that they could have probably kicked field goals, I believe. I know at least 2. I think it was 3, and they chose not to. And Dan Lanning, their head coach, said that was ultimately on him.
on him. And you know what? He took responsibility for it. He saw some things. He believed in his team in a certain capacity that we're going to go get that first down. And that's what he chose to do. And by all means, they're not out of it. Okay. Just like when we talk about the Ohio State Penn State game, whoever the loser of that is not necessarily out of it. So here's what I learned about Washington. And Penix Jr. is real. He is playing at an elite level.
Smooth.
Very, very smooth. And he's a veteran guy. So that's one. Washington was able to handle the physicality of Oregon. And again, when you play on a national landscape, you play an SEC and a Big Ten team, the physicality aspect will be there. Can you handle it? And they did. And they were able to put up points throwing the football, and they ran it effectively. So at the end of the day, are they a contender? 100% they are. And now, because of what happened at USC, at Notre Dame, which that was super bumpy, Penix is a front runner for the Heisman right now, but he set himself up for that, Bob.
He did. A little disappointed for me. I love that Dan Lanning was being aggressive. And if you're a coach and you tell your players, we're going to go be aggressive to win this game. If you're on fourth down, you got to go for it. I didn't love some of the play calls that they had. And then ultimately it comes down to you have a kicker that has a chance to make a kick dead centered out from about 40, 45 yards out. You got to go hit it. He did not make it. Stanford takes down Colorado in double overtime. I watched that game, Schlegs. I was out here on the West Coast. Many people probably fell asleep. I could not believe that they came back. I love that Dion was it's a 3rd and 5 with 3 minutes to go.
Right.
And I like a lot of what he does, but they chose to throw it to Travis Hunter. And I'm like, man, it's 3rd and 5. You're going in on the 40-yard line. Go run the football. Set yourself up for a short 4th and 2. If nothing else, the clock runs more, but instead they throw it, it's incomplete, and they have to punt. Run it, go get 3 or 4 yards, get a 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and then if you want to go for it, then go for it, but you're running clock. And then we just see so many people don't execute well in clock management. We watched that happen last week, and we talked about Mario Cristobal and Mike Loxley. But the real game that we want to get to, Notre Dame 48, USC 20. And I sat there and said, our guy Marcus Freeman, man, if they dust off that Ohio State game plan, we're going to pound the rock, we're going to grind clock, we're going to force them to stop us, and every time they get the ball, they're going to score. They have to try to score. Notre Dame has a good defense.
Yeah, they do.
And you knew if they gave USC 8 or 9 possessions, maybe 10, you'd be able to stop them on at least half of them, maybe 2/3. And that's what they did. And Notre Dame was able to run through them, Schlegs, like crap through a goose. And Audric Estime and that offensive line just hammered them to the tune of 48-20. Big win for Notre Dame. And I think that helps Ohio State a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it helps Ohio State. I mean, again, you guys got to remember, man, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. Louisville just beat Notre Dame last week, and they get beat by Pitt, who's 2-4 now. I mean, that's the reality. Hey, Dad, guess what? The Browns beat the 49ers. You never would have saw that coming, but it happens, right? Listen, with the portal and the way things are, there's a lot of parity. But every single week, you got to bring your best. And USC didn't have their best, and they affected Caleb Williams. He was scrambling for his life. He's not going to necessarily throw those throws, but he's trying to get himself back, his team back in the game. So he's just making some errant throws, and they got 3 picks, I believe, in that game. And guess what? Yeah. In big games like that, turnovers matter. And then again, you got 7 points in the first quarter, boom, 17 in the second. Now they're reeling. You know what I'm saying? They're up 24-6 at half on USC coming into South Bend. And guess what? It's hard to win in South Bend, and the Buckeyes did it. So that being said, there's a lot of great things that happen in college football. It's why you love it. It's why you love watching these matchups. But every single week, it's always going to come down to the turnovers, man. You can't turn the ball over and win big time games. Can't do it.
You can't do it. They did it. They've been relying on Caleb Williams far too much.
Yep.
One guy is great, but he's got to be able to get it done. We've got a big rivalry game coming up this week. Michigan at Michigan State. Michigan State blew a huge lead at Rutgers. Michigan is nearly a 20-point favorite on the road. I would like to think Michigan State could make this thing close. I don't think that they can. I think ultimately Michigan pulls away from them and probably controls this game really from kick to finish. So let's stick around. We're going to take a quick break, Schlegs. We got a lot of stuff. We're going to break down. We got Penn State this week. Finally, another big game for the Buckeyes. We're going to give you the insight, the little talking points, the stuff that you need to know for the Bucs to take on the Nittany Lions. All that's coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. My man Anthony Schlegel is here. Huge weekend in college football coming up because finally we got the Bucs welcoming a big-time opponent into the shoe, Penn State, a team that they have played every year since they entered the Big Ten. Now that's going to change here in the future as we now have a massive Big Ten going coast to coast, 18 teams.
Really girthy, Bob.
It's going to be girthy.
The girthy 10.
The girthy 10. The only protected rivalry is going to be Michigan. So Penn State, that'll go by the wayside. I believe over the next 5 years, they're going to play each other 3 times. But this has been a rivalry, Schlegs, that we have loved to see. It's been a game that's gone back and forth. You and I, over my tenure there, we went 3-1. We lost my senior year. Had some unbelievable stories. There's some crazy things that happened in some of those games. The whiteouts over at Penn State were legendary. And unfortunately, Schlegs, with how the Big Ten is moving, like with Fox, the whiteouts don't even happen for this game anymore, which for Ohio State on the road is a good thing. I'd like this to be a night game at home, maybe not on the road, but it's not going to be so. But looking back on these Penn State games, they've got a big noon kick this week.
Yep.
And so it's going to be at noon. We played some night, we played some afternoon. But what are some of the fondest memories you have? When I talk about Penn State and the rivalry with the Buckeyes, what comes to mind?
Well, Bob, I mean, the number one thing that comes to mind is our senior year, right? So we go there, we lost to Texas earlier in the season. That still haunts me. And again, guys that care about football and that play football, we don't remember the wins, right? We remember the losses. We remember everything that entails in that loss. And I remember 2005, 172 yards, Bob. You were there. That's how many yards we gave up defensively, 172. And we got beat 17-10. And that's a swift kick in your sack. Now, here's the thing. What I remember about that the most, right? Again, remember, you train all winter, you train all summer, you have fall camp, you're in the season, and then you go into these environments. And I just remember walking out of that tunnel with you guys. And they had this tiny little trashy locker room, and you had to walk through these erector set.
It's like, you remember
barriers
go under the stadium.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
They would have like the little yellow cord rope that you would like buy at like Target. And like there's police holding that back, and there's like old ladies, grandmas throwing stuff at you. I mean, it's the reason why you come to Ohio State, but it's also crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that right there in that moment, it was like Gladiator, and they're like, this stuff's coming down, and like you're going out with your dudes in this hostile environment. And if I remember correctly, Bob, I think that was the very first whiteout.
It was.
And
they call that the Rick James game.
I'm Rick James. Anyways, so that environment, and then we did our job. Like, you can't, like, I'm not looking back at it, but I truly believe if we win that game, our season takes a different trajectory. Maybe we go back and we play Texas again. I don't know, because they played USC. I don't know how it all transpires, but I just remember that game. I remember the environment. I remember walking out, and I remember just absolutely spilling on that, and we still got beat. And I was like, you know what? It happens, right? So that right there. Now, in the series, guys, we won 6 in a row. Like, this is good. But when you look at these games, good on good, I mean, that 2017 game was the first game I was ever back in the shoe to watch it. And that was one where we came back and we won 39-38. Remember, we had those wolf looking uniforms on, or whatever that was that year. They're gray. Like that environment when JT Barrett brought us back and we won 39-38 at home, that was crazy. That was
Well,
probably the loudest I've ever heard the shoe, too.
historically, if you look back over the last 10 years, there's been a blowout or two here or there, but these
Yeah.
have been the best games in conference. I mean, Ohio State, Penn State, you look back, to the loss in 2016, I believe 2017 when it was there, or maybe here the one where
2017 was here.
18 maybe when Benjamin Victor catches it over his shoulder and weaves through everybody for 40 yards. There have been some remarkable games in this contest. So you feel like this is a big deal because it's an adjacent state. It's a big time football state. They've got a lot of tough guys. They recruit a lot of Ohio guys. So we talk about Michigan all the time. And so this is kind of a precursor to that because Penn State, they're led by a local kid this year. Quarterback Drew Aller from Medina, Ohio. He's been the guy who's supposed to take him to the next level. He's a big dude. He kind of reminds me of Josh Allen out of Buffalo with what he's able to do. He moves. He's got a big arm, a big gun. And you know what? Maybe if things would have worked out differently in recruiting, maybe he is a Buckeye, but he's not. He's ultimately playing for the Nittany Lions. He's got almost 1,300 yards this year, 65% completion rate, 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
That's good.
It's good. His stats are good. But one thing Josh Perry dropped out to me, our guy, Ohio State Buckeye on the desk for NBC. And I asked him, how good is Penn State? And he goes, listen, they got a lot of yards they put up. But also remember this. This was as of 2 weeks ago. He goes, they're 10th in yards per play that they run. So they run a lot of plays. They've been in good situations, but they're maybe not as explosive as you would like to see because they run the ball a lot with Singleton, who's good.
Yeah.
Maybe you just got to get after Aller a little bit.
Hey, listen, let's face it, man. They play WVU, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, and UMass. Okay. So we'll just take that for what it's worth. Okay. They put up 44 points a game. Great. They're fantastic on third down. They're 48%. Why? Because they run the football. And it's really Allen and Singleton because they got 375 and 362 between both of them. Like they will run both. Like they're really good at running the football. Aller, to your point, Bob, not a lot of his passes are downfield. Why is that? They use the tight end a lot. Like better
than a loose end, Schlegs.
Oh, no doubt. Man, got to have the tight end. And so with that, who is that tight end? What's his name? There's Warren, and then there's All, right? I believe All has 2 touchdowns. Warren has 5. Maybe it's backward. I don't remember. But they got 2 tight ends. They like to use the tight ends, but they run the football. They use the tight ends. They have Lambert Smith as their go-to wide receiver. He's got 400 yards. But that's really what they do. They're going to try to control the clock. They're going to get you to where they're third and short. They're going to convert, and they're going to keep the time of possession because they own it for 34 minutes on average. So you accompany that, right, along with their defense. Guys, their defense has 27 sacks and 7 interceptions and 6 caused fumbles. Like the reason you can put up some of those stats is because you're getting turnovers. Now, mind you, I just said WVU, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, and UMass. That's who they played so far. So guess what? Their test is coming in to the Ohio State and Ohio Stadium on the banks of the Olentangy. And I can't wait to watch all this transpire. Side nugget, number 1 defense of the country versus the number 7 defense of the country. That's really where it's going to be won, Bob.
Well, if you look at this, Ohio State gave up 7 to Purdue. I want to say Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue, like they're all in the top 6
they're
or
all
7.
Right there, bro. Defense. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
They're right. Yardage, I don't care about total defense. Yardage is inconsequential. How good are you on scoring defense? What's your third down look like? What's your red zone defense look like? And those 3 things will tell me basically how good you are as a team.
Remember we were talking about early in the year, last year, Ohio State was like 100th and something in red zone defense. I think they're now they're up to 14th.
Well, yeah,
that's really stops. Good. But that's what you guys saw. Like, I mean, everybody's talking about individual players and things of that nature. Like, listen, the dudes that are out there, they had a couple opportunities and they stopped them. Like, that's what you have to have as a defense. Like, you just can't break. And they had a couple of short fields too, Bob.
They did. So let me ask you this. I think the point total on this thing is 56.5.
Okay.
For the total. If it goes over or under, where do you think Ohio State has a bigger advantage? Do you want to see this be more of a low scoring game, or do you want to see this be a high scoring game? Which favors Ohio State more?
I would say favoring Ohio State more would be a high scoring game because that means unfortunately, that means they probably rattled off some long runs.
Maybe
in
some
my
long
own,
passes. I mean, you got Marvin
I,
Harrison, dude.
well, no, I'm talking about for them, right? If I
Oh,
want
yeah.
it to be a more of a high scoring game, that means that they're for them, they probably broke some big runs to score fast because that's not their MO. Like their MO is they want to run the football. They're really going to do what we saw Notre Dame try to do. Like they want to run the football and own time possession and limit our offense's ability to move the ball vertically because that's what we do best. Like let's not kid ourselves. Like we want to run the football, but we move the ball vertically the best, right? We run tempo, we run motion, and we change fronts, and we just like we did versus Purdue. Like that was the first time I was really juiced about it. That's when we're at our best. We're not going to be balanced. Like they are. They're 203 and 223. Like that's not us. We're 300 and 150. Like that's kind of us, right? So what is that going to take? To me, this game is like 27-24. I think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to come down to their kicking game because their kicker has missed 4 field goals this year. So defensively, yeah, you might give up some. They get into your red zone or high red zone, and you stop them. You hold them to a field goal. You did your job because they're good, just like you're good. And that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down. Their punter, like you can honestly, if you get them backed up and you stop them, Bob, to where they have to punt, their punter's averaging 38 yards a punt. That's going to flip the script and give us a short field. So on those opportunities, right, to change field position, but also to limit them to field goals, that's how Ohio State can win this football game.
It really is. D-line's got to play well also.
They do.
And we watched Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau step up this week. Both each had a sack and a half. We're going to need Mike Hall to play big inside. You're going to need to see the linebackers. Cody Simon played pretty well.
He did.
Last game. I enjoyed seeing him. Tommy's going to have to play big because Nick Singleton is good for them. He is a very talented runner. If you can bottle up the running game and push this on Drew Aller, I feel good.
That's it.
About how it could turn out. Because he's a young dude. He's going to be in a hostile environment. He's an Ohio guy. There's going to be a lot of emotions for him. And I understand that, dude, like 100%. But you've got to force it on him and make him make those plays. Kyle needs to continue to improve. I like the wrinkle with Devin Brown. Go ahead, Schlegs. What do you got?
No, I'm Bob, you're spot on. I was just going to say this. When I get tired of hearing people talking about the physicality of Ohio State. I'm telling you right now, here's the thing that has to be cleared up. Linebackers can't always be correcting or adjusting for D linemen. That's what I see. So I see this, man. Like if you're in that freaking A gap, be in the A gap because I'm going to go take the double team off you and be in the B gap. But linebacker, you better come down there with force and use hat and hands to create separation to be there. So I'm telling you right now, the run defense in this game is not a physical aspect. Our guys are physical. It's more schematical and eliminating the gray. There can be no confusion. What are you responsible for? And then do your freaking job. It's build a wall mentality. When you start to freelance, that always looks bad on the linebackers because it's their responsibility to make you look whole. That's what I'm going to say in this. So the more fundamentally sound we are up front, and again, the way our DBs have been playing, Bob, make it on Drew Aller. Like, make that guy beat you. And guess what? Guess what Penn State's going to do? They're going to make not Marvin Harrison beat you.
Absolutely. You always got to make you right. So coming up, we're going to take a quick break. We got some stories from Happy Valley, some stories from this Ohio State-Penn State game that we'll get into, talk a little more keys to victory right after this quick commercial break. It's the Bobby Carpenter Show with Anthony Schlegel right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. We're happy to have you with us as we are previewing this Penn State weekend. Huge game for the Bucks as they get going here. And Schlegs, you and I, we played the Nittany Lions a number of times.
Yeah.
You were there in 04 when we had a win. You were there at Penn State in 05. We had a loss. I was there in 02 when we beat a really good Penn State team. Over in 03, we almost got ambushed over there. And that 05 game that we talked about, the first whiteout that they have, they're playing, it's a top 10 matchup. And so we can talk about playing, Notre Dame, which I think is huge. It's a big game. It was on the road, and that's a big deal because it's a historic opponent that you're playing. But this is a conference matchup against a top 10 opponent. Everybody at the beginning of the year, when you look at your conference games, you're circling Penn State, you're circling Michigan. And both of those games are right there. We've got this one right here. Penn State has lived up to it this year. So has Ohio State. Is there a different energy when you're playing this game?
100% there is, Bob, because it matters, right? I mean, here's the deal, and everybody's talking about, is this a rivalry? Is it not a rivalry? 100% it's a rivalry. Why? Because they give a shit, just like everybody else that wants to win. Like, there's a difference, right? To me, if the rivalry doesn't want to win or want to do what is necessary to compete to win, then it's not a rivalry. Guess what? Penn State wants to win. They put everything in their facilities. They want to win at a lot of different sports too, man. Their wrestling program is fantastic. Like, I love watching their wrestling program. But football-wise, they are trying to do everything they possibly can to be there on a national landscape. It is a rivalry. When you look at the teams that could beat you on the East, matter of fact, just in the Big Ten, there's 3 teams that win the Big Ten. It's Ohio State, it's Michigan, and it's Penn State. That's it. So when good plays good, it's a rivalry. And that's why it matters. And I'll tell you this, Bob.
Tell me.
I can't
Give it to me, Schlegs.
The only good thing right now that I know that comes out of non-Happy Valley is Sheetz. All right, that's it. We got Sheetz in Columbus. We asked for it, we got it. And it's great because they sell death fluid that I put in my diesel, obviously with a lot of real truck accessories. Now, here's the thing. Great story. My mother-in-law, Deborah Price.
Happy ending, Valley?
Probably for them. They probably do that at a really high elite level. Now, Deborah Price goes to Penn State. We're watching it. Remember? Oh my gosh, Bob, that story of you, we don't even need to talk anything else. You should bring up that story about you on the bus at Penn State. Anyways, that being said, these people were spilling beer and doing all this stuff, mother effing everybody. Like, Steph's there, my dad's there, my father-in-law's there, my mother-in-law's there. They're spilling beer on her. And she just turns around like, would y'all like some of my, pretzel? And then they stopped. But their fans are absolutely crazy turd buckets. But Deborah Price got him to simmer down. That's what I remember. And I also remember the first and only time outside of playing, and I've heard Tress say some funny things in meetings, but the first time I ever heard Jim Tressel cuss at another human was to your host, Bobby Carpenter, on the bus, because our bus driver couldn't get us out and nobody fed the wild animal that was Bobby Carpenter on that bus for a solid 5 hours. And oh my gosh, guys, listen, we were watching some Boondock Saints. Just picture this. There's like naked women on the deal. There's Ellen Tressel and Jim Tressel in the front. Why is this going on? I don't know. But Bob's just back there just berating this bus driver who's lost and it's raining and it's terrible. Yeah, needing 5 hours. Again, feed the beast. You know what I'm saying? And then Jim Tressel walks back there and just drops an F-bomb on Bobby Carpenter for the low. I mean, I don't even remember what he said, but I just remember there's an F-bomb.
I do.
Yeah, I know you remember.
First of all, Happy Valley's, it's up high elevation.
Yeah.
So when the clouds are low, it's tough to get in.
Yeah, it is.
So we ended up flying to Harrisburg, got redirected. It's like 2-hour bus ride through coal country, all these roads, watching the Boondock Saints. I'm starving. It's a mess. We get to the hotel at freaking 10 o'clock. But as I was very loudly vocalizing my displeasure with the situation,
super loud,
Jim Tressel may have peeled back in a way that only he could say, as you, myself, AJ, Nick Mangold, Rob Sims, we're all kind of talking there. And he looks down, and way only can say, he's like, for the sake of this team, would you shut the bleep up? I go, yep. Okay. I get that.
Hey, man. Hey, when he walked by us, it was just like this. He
was walking back so fast. I'm like, man,
oh my gosh.
He must really have to pee. So he did not. He just had to come and tell me to be quiet. So Schlegs, we can get into this story all day. We'll tell a little bit.
It was amazing, guys. It was amazing.
It was remarkable. It was. But we got coming up our favorite segment of the week, each and every week. We get to answer your questions with the tailgate talk brought to you by Real Truck. All that's coming up next. What do you want to know? Right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man Anthony Schlegel on the Big Play Network. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. It's our favorite segment every week. It's a segment where we get to answer your questions, what you want to know about the Buckeyes. It's Tailgate Talk presented by Real Truck. It's everything you need to know. Last year, Real Truck, they partnered with George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Dak Prescott to give away 3 ultimate tailgate trucks to community heroes through the Truck It list. This year, they're going to give away one lucky winner, an ultimate tailgating truck. It's a 2022 Toyota Tundra. And it's got unbelievable things like a Pro Comp 2.5-inch lift kit, which I love, the Rhino Rack Pioneer platform roof rack, all kinds of great stuff, Schlegs. All you got to do is follow at Real Truck on Instagram and click on the link in their bio to register. It's completely free to enter. Tell me about their great stuff.
Yeah, listen, I'll just tell you, listen, if you're a real dude or a real dudette and you have a truck, go to realtruck.com. Hoof David Copperfield. I do. And I like that you said they have the Rhino Rack Pioneer Platform Roof Rack. One, they got a shade thing on there because, like, I live in Jacksonville, Florida. You go to the beach, you pull that out, you put some lawn chairs down, you're just, looking at the ocean. Or a side nugget, you put a tent up there, you drive on the beach, and you take your old lady out there and like, hey, boom, let's get it on. So listen, everything you want, and you can also have a great tailgate. Like, what are we talking about here, people? It's all good. Let's go. Go Bucks.
That's fantastic. And so we'll get to some of these we'll get some of the real talk, real truck tailgate talk questions.
Yeah, let's go, man.
Coming to us at Twitter
from
at KCBucks523. Do we think the run success / strategy versus Purdue can carry over to Penn State, or do you think Penn State will likely shut down our run and embarrass the O-line?
Oh man, that's terrible. Embarrass the O-line. No, listen, what's the strategy, Cotton? I don't know. Bold strategy. Bold strategy, Cotton. Hey, you want to shut down the run? Well, guess what? Marvin Harrison's going to be single. Oh, you don't want to cover Marvin Harrison and double him? Or you do? Well, we got a Mecca and we got Cade, right? Like, you got Julian Fleming. Like, you got weapons, man. You got Carnell Tate. You saw him. Like, listen, if you want to stop the run, guess what? The beautiful thing about Ohio State is they can beat you in multiple ways. The thing that we don't know about Penn State, they can only beat you with the run. Poof, David Copperfield, you're welcome. Go Bucks. What do you got, Bob?
So what I like is I saw the Devin Brown package, which I think was good. So obviously he ran it successfully, and he would have had a second rushing touchdown if he doesn't cough the ball. I think the defender got his head around the football, and it's a learning opportunity for him. And thankfully, he can learn in a win, so you're not learning in a loss, which is always something you can benefit from. But also, we watched Devin Brown throw the football, and so if he gets inserted into the game, he can toss it a little bit. He's not as good a passer quite yet, I think, as consistently as Kyle McCord is. And everybody was sitting there, oh, put Devin in more, Devin this and that. I'm like, well, then he fumbled and everybody got mad. So just chill out a little bit. Sure. It's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems.
Thank you.
But then we also saw Kyle run it a little bit. And so I think that's something you can also see as Kyle utilize his legs and go pick up 5 to 7 to 8 yards when he ultimately needs to. So that's something that you need to see. That's something that we're going to have to do against Penn State. At home, I think helps a lot, Schlegs.
Yeah, he did that to get to 3rd and short.
Yes.
You get 2nd and 10 because something doesn't happen and it's not there. I get to remember last year when every swing and whatever was talking about CJ Stroud, like what he's doing in the NFL, right? And we talked about just go get enough to go to 3rd and manageable. That's what Kyle McCord did. Guess what? That's his game. Good job. Next question.
So I thought that was really important, though. I mean, I think this run, the offensive line played better in the run game. I think Dallin Hayden, like you said, Schlegs, he's a foot in the ground runner, so they can run that boundary toss that you love so much that they get there. Hey, because he stretches it, puts his foot in the ground, and gives you one wiggle, and then goes again. And so it's a much better situation to set up. Hopefully Chip comes back. And it didn't seem that severe. He seemed okay. Mayan hopefully should be healthy. I think part of the reason they held Trey out was because they want to get him healthy again and make sure that he's 100% ready to go for this Penn State game and the stretch run of the Big Ten season. So it feels like they're in a pretty good spot.
Yep.
Offensive line, I think it's a confidence thing. They got some stuff going. I think the misdirection stuff was Xavier Johnson was able to help some things out, but Ryan showed some different things that Penn State will have to get ready for. Plus, I feel like they're probably holding him a little bit back, which is important. So they'll have a couple of new wrinkles for this Penn State game as well. Next question here. We got at Dollar Dog Nick. Does the loser of the Ohio State Penn State game still have a realistic shot at the 4-team playoff, or Schlegs, is this an elimination game?
Nope, it's not. It's they still got a shot because of the way the Big Ten is. And, we beat – it doesn't matter, man. All 3 of these teams are really good. You play Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, they all beat each other. Like, what happens, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. Somebody's going to go to the Big Ten championship game. I don't think it's an elimination game. You win out. I don't think the loser of this game is out of it. But here's the thing, though. The mentality is that you are. So go win the freaking football game.
It is. I don't know if it's a full elimination game, but if you lose this game, you lose control of your destiny. And you need help then at that point. And that, I think, is where this is going to be tough. If you win the game, you're still undefeated, and you have a chance to march up to Ann Arbor in that final game of the season. You win that, you're going to the Big Ten championship, which you're most likely winning that game and you're in.
Yep.
If you lose this game, well, then you probably need Michigan to beat Penn State. You've got to beat Michigan, get a little bit of help. Maybe if you don't get to the Big Ten championship game and you have one loss, maybe Florida State potentially loses. They don't win the conference. You start looking around. And what happened last year could potentially happen again, where Ohio State ultimately gets in and has a shot. And believe me, I think they're one of the best teams in college football. We just watched where 2 weeks ago, Georgia Schlegs looked phenomenal against Kentucky. A top-ranked Kentucky team.
Facts.
Did a great job. And then they're playing Vanderbilt, who I would put on par with Purdue. And they looked very, very average to mediocre. And so this year, like, you have no idea. USC, people thought, hey, they're really good. Notre Dame smoked them at home. You know what we said after last week against Notre Dame? I heard people say they can't get it done. They're not as good as people think. You know what happened? They played 3 straight night games, 2 of them on the road. It was the other team's Super Bowls. They ran out of emotional energy. And so as we look at this, there's a lot of things out there. But if you lose this game, you lose control of your destiny. And that's not something that I feel very comfortable with.
Points, Bob. I mean, you're spot on. And at the end of the day, it's everybody wants to talk about the 12. I like the 4, but it doesn't really matter what I like. But with the expansion, conference expansion, and going to 18 teams, listen, guys, there's gonna be two loss. I mean, just get ready, man. I mean, it's a battle of attrition, and you're gonna go through it. It's not just physical, but it's also mental and emotional. Like getting up for these games, just because there's a reason they're not pros, right? There's a reason the Browns beat the 49ers like every single week, and especially the parity through the portal. Like, you don't even know what they got, and all of a sudden they're there. Yeah. Like, there is so many things and underlying stories that impact this moving forward, that there's going to be, like, you're going to have to accept the fact that you might get 2 losses, but you could come in as a 9 seed and still win it, because it's, again, who gets hot, right? So
it's who gets hot, but we don't have a 12 team now. We still have a 4 team. And so we need to make sure that Ohio State wins this game. We'll deal with that coming up. We're going to wrap up the show. And I got a little nugget for you, Schlegs, on the OHSAA and how some of the ticketing situation is going with high school football in Ohio. It's something you're not going to want to miss. So stay tuned next on the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show here on the Big Play Network. My guy, Anthony Schlegel, sitting shotgun, talked a lot about the Purdue win, talked a lot about Penn State coming up this Saturday and what the Buckeyes ultimately need to do to get that game done. But the lifeline, the lifeblood of Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics is Ohio high school sports. And one of the things that has been disheartening to me over the last couple years is, during COVID, we went to the digital ticketing solution. Hometown Tickets took control of everything during COVID, and to buy tickets to any high school or middle school game, basically in the state, you had to sit here and you had to go on your phone and like, hey, I got to put stuff in, buy the ticket. And I'm like, I have no problem doing that. Now, my dad doesn't have an iPhone, he doesn't have a smartphone, so they've got some issues of trying to solve that. A lot of older people, they want to go see their grandkids play in middle school or high school. I get it. They've got issues. Why can't you just go and pay cash? But the bigger problem I had is I'm buying a $5 ticket to go see my kids in middle school, and there's a $1.50 surcharge that's going to hometown ticketing. It's not going to the schools, to their athletic department to help, fund kids' needs. It's going to somewhere else, to a third-party vendor. I have no problem with people, taking a rake. It seemed like $1.50 on $5. That's 30% Schlegs. Might be a bit steep. Okay. Might be a bit steep. So I was disappointed with that. And now I see that the unbelievable General Assembly in Ohio passed a law that said you have to, for high school events, if it's hosted by the high school, you have to give them a cash ticketing option. If the people have the ability to pay and you don't have a cash ticketing option, they get them for free. Well, now all of a sudden we're seeing the cash ticketing option at these schools be $2 more than the online ticketing option in the event to drive them away. And now the OHSAA for playoffs is doing the same thing. It drives me crazy. So I want Governor DeWine, I want the Ohio General Assembly to get involved to try to make this right, Schlegs, for the folks. So you can go watch a cousin, a nephew, a niece go play in the playoffs in the Ohio High School Athletic Association, one of the great institutions you're going to find in Ohio high school and go get that done. Thank you for tuning into the Bobby Carpenter Show here on the Big Play Network. We're going to keep it rolling each and every week.